not pretend like a peaceful protest would actually get the attention of the people that, like, or rather the sanction of the state. Because, like I said before, respectability politics as it comes to protesting or any political action is never really about the actual tactics, and it's always about what the cause of that protest is. Because a respectful protest is a protest that barely addresses the status quo.
It don't matter. Respectability don't matter. We got pictures of peaceful protesters being maced. I know you're not making that point, but I'm just saying, like, everybody's like, oh, just be peaceful. Oh, just be peaceful. Oh, just be peaceful. If you're not considered like a chosen worthy group, like the white women, the predominantly white women who marched in the women's marches. And yes, I know they weren't all white women. I was at a sister march. I've covered the sister marches. I've spoken favorably about them and criticized them both. But that was one thing. Oh, yes. And we didn't have any issues, and we were nonviolent, and the police didn't bother us. They were so nice.
Here's a cookie.
You don't understand the issue.
Yeah. So the point I'm just trying to make is simply that, like, people are acting as though the respectability of a protest is determined by the tactics that the protest engages in, when really it's determined by the cause and whether or not the mainstream establishment, politicians, and media can co-opt that protest to benefit their cause, like they were able to do with the Women's March, or and a lot of those anti-establishment protests that took place after Trump. Where, like, oh, these are anti-Trump protests. No, these are anti-establishment, anti-DNC, anti-Trump. Everything that occurred, these are anti-structure status quo protests. Like, it's not the respectability of a protest or any political action, whether it be a debate or a speech or a movement, is not determined by their language, their actions, etc. It is determined by what are they critiquing with this protest. What exactly are they? What exactly is this protest concerned with? If it's concerned with, economic equity, oh, then this is not respectable, no matter what the tactic is. They're blocking traffic. Yeah. Oops, it's a moving goalpost. Oh, they're blocking traffic. That's not peaceful. Like, oh, like someone threw a firecracker up, but like that's not peaceful. Like it's this moving goalpost. And frankly, it's always used as a post hoc justification for either ignoring the problem that already exists or a justification for the problem that already exists. And that's what people want to do. They want to say, okay, well, they want to pretend as though if the protest had been, quote unquote, peaceful in its tactics, whatever that means, that it would have accomplished something and not been ignored or met with violence. But we know, regardless of Black Bloc, we know that police infiltrate protests and instigate. We know that. That is a thing that happens. And that is a thing. Years. That happened at NYU a few weeks ago at the McInnes thing, and Black Bloc was there, and one of their goals is to disrupt police instigation, because that's something they do. And so to pretend as though absent violent protesters, a protest would not get violent is ludicrous. And not only that, when like people come to peacefully protest, if they're not the right group, if they're not the Women's March, if they're not an establishment sanctioned protest, they're met with riot police regardless of what they do. Right-wing violence, right-wing terrorism, right-wing hate groups will always be treated better or more amiably by liberals, conservatives, the mainstream media, etc. Because right-wing violence is always pro-system. It's always pro-status quo. Insofar that we've ever had an anti-establishment right-wing, the Tea Party was as close as we got, and that was immediately co-opted.
Oh, McVeigh, were you old enough for that? McVeigh. Yeah.
So these are outliers, right? But most right-wing violence is in response to what people perceive as the system changing and people who didn't traditionally have rights having more rights, whether it be Planned Parenthood bombings, bombing the Black churches. Absolutely. Like right-wing terrorism is always, if not state sanctioned or state approved, or rather it's approved by state apathy, because the state recognizes that it's always violence that is being done to disapprove of changes being made to the status quo. It's always violence in the violence against progress. While left-wing violence, in the fact that the vast minority is always amplified because it's always anti-establishment. It's always amplified by the establishment media, the establishment politicians, because it's always anti-establishment. Left-wing violence is never pro status quo. It's always I have a grievance with the lack of progress. I have a grievance with the lack of mobility socially. Yeah. And so it will always be demonized. It will always be demonized at a disproportionate rate by the state, because the state recognizes that it's basically an assault on the state. And and so just to finish up, to properly critique right-wing violence, whether it's, you know, MSNBC or Fox News or etc., you would have to critique the state itself. You can't critique right-wing terrorism without critiquing the rationale behind right-wing terrorism, and that's why they're so desperate to play them off as crazy or simply white supremacists. It's like, well, what is white supremacy? Like, what is he trying to protect as far as white supremacy in terms of like what that actually means structurally?
What America was before any other group got access to America. White Christian men. That's what white supremacy is maintaining and sustaining that system. So you're right. It's all about sustaining the status quo.